One day, while Annabelle was out shopping, she overheard a conversation between two women in the market. They were discussing the importance of having sons to carry on the family name and take care of their parents in old age. Annabelle's heart sank as she listened to their words, feeling the weight of societal expectations pressing down on her. Once upon a time, in the bustling city of Lagos, there lived a couple named Joshua and Annabelle. They had been in love since their university days, where they met and became inseparable. Joshua came from a poor background, but Annabelle's family was comfortably well off. On the day of their graduation, Joshua surprised Annabelle by proposing to her. It was a joyful moment for the young couple, filled with love and excitement. However, Annabelle's family was not as thrilled. They whispered to Annabelle, expressing their concerns about Joshua and insisting on investigating him before giving their approval. But Annabelle was deeply in love with Joshua and paid no heed to her family's worries. She believed in him and was determined to stand by his side no matter what. And so their journey together began, filled with hope, love, and the promise of a bright future. Annabelle's family investigated Joshua's background and discovered he came from a poor family. They disapproved of him, but Annabelle remained determined to be with him after graduating. Annabelle got a job but preferred doing business. She gave the job to Joshua so he could save up for their marriage. Joshua worked hard, built a house for his family, but seemed too busy to focus on their relationship. As time passed, Joshua became more distant, prioritizing work over their relationship. Annabelle's family teased her about the delayed engagement, comparing her to Lord of the Ring. Despite the mockery, Annabelle remained patient, waiting for Joshua to make a move towards marriage. But she couldn't help feeling disappointed by his lack of attention and commitment to their relationship. On a Saturday morning, Annabelle decided to surprise Joshua by visiting him at his apartment. She didn't call ahead, but when she arrived, Joshua was happy to see her. However, Annabelle seemed upset, and Joshua noticed she wasn't her usual cheerful self. Tearfully, Annabelle expressed her feelings, asking if she still meant anything to him. Joshua was confused, but tried to reassure her that everything was fine. Despite the initial tension, Annabelle and Joshua spent a memorable weekend together at his place, enjoying each other's company and forgetting their troubles. When Monday came, Joshua went back to work while Annabelle resumed her business activities. Months later, Joshua called Annabelle and told her he wanted to visit her parents to discuss their marriage plans. Annabelle was overjoyed by the news and eagerly awaited Joshua's visit. Finally, after everything was settled with her parents, Annabelle happily moved into her husband's house, ready to start a new chapter of her life with Joshua. Annabelle felt incredibly happy and fulfilled now that she was married to Joshua, her true love. Her in-laws adored her because of all the help she had given Joshua, so they all got along well. A year later, Annabelle became pregnant and everyone was overjoyed, Joshua especially, eagerly anticipating the arrival of their baby. When the time came, Annabelle gave birth to a beautiful baby girl whom they named Sharon. Sharon quickly became the center of attention in the family, with everyone doting on her. Annabelle found it challenging to juggle her business and taking care of the baby, so she decided to take a break from work to focus on Sharon and give her the attention she deserved. Sharon was always surrounded by love and happiness from her parents and relatives. Just before her second birthday, Annabelle found out she was going to have another baby, Joshua hoped for a boy, but the scan revealed it would be another girl. Despite the news, they were excited to welcome another daughter into their family. When the baby Mirabel arrived, they were overjoyed. Annabelle was delighted to see her little girl, while Joshua rushed to the hospital to meet his new daughter. Sharon took on the role of a big sister beautifully, bonding with Mirabel and showering her with love. However, when Annabelle found out she was expecting another girl, her hopes for a son were dashed. She cried, disappointed she wouldn't have the son she had longed for. Joshua tried to comfort her, but he too felt a pang of sadness at the news. As Sharon and Mirabel grew up, they became inseparable. They played together, shared secrets, and giggled endlessly. Annabel and Joshua were delighted to see their daughters getting along so well, but Annabel couldn't shake off the disappointment of not having a son. Meanwhile, Joshua was content with his two daughters. He cherished every moment with them, teaching them new things and watching them grow. He reassured Annabel that having two healthy and happy daughters was a blessing regardless of their gender. One day, while Annabel was out shopping, she overheard a conversation between two women in the market. They were discussing the importance of having sons to carry on the family name and take care of their parents in old age. Annabel's heart sank as she listened to their words, feeling the weight of societal expectations pressing down on her. When she returned home, Annabel couldn't shake off the thoughts that had been swelling in her mind. She confided in Joshua, her husband, about her worries and insecurities, expressing her fears that she would never be able to give him a son. Joshua listened patiently, holding her hand and assuring her that he loved their daughters more than anything and that they were enough for him. Despite Joshua's reassurances, Annabel couldn't shake off her feeling of inadequacy. She couldn't help but wonder if her inability to bear a son would affect her marriage and her standing in the family. She began to withdraw into herself, feeling a sense of despair creeping in. Joshua noticed the change in Annabel's demeanor and grew concerned. He tried his best to lift her spirits, showering her with love and affections, but nothing seemed to alleviate her sadness. He suggested seeking counsel from their family and friends, hoping that their support would help Annabel overcome her worries. Reluctantly, Annabel agreed, and they reached out to their loved ones for advice and guidance. Their family and friends rallied around them, offering words of encouragement and support. They reminded Annabel of the love and happiness she had in her life, urging her to focus on the blessings she had rather than dwell on what she didn't. Slowly but surely, Annabel began to emerge from the despair. With the unwavering support of her family and friends, she realized that her worth wasn't defined by her ability to bear a son. She found solace in the love of her daughters and the unwavering support of her husband, knowing that she was truly blessed. As the days passed, Annabel's heart grew lighter and she embraced the joy and happiness that surrounded her. She cherished every moment with her family, grateful for the love and laughter they shared. And though the longing for a son still lingered in the back of her mind, she knew that she was truly blessed with the love of her daughters and the unwavering support of her husband. As Mirabel grew older, Annabel eagerly anticipated the arrival of her third child. She hoped that this time she would finally have a son to complete their family. Despite her excitement, Annabel couldn't shake off her worries about not having a son. She longed for a son to carry on the family name and bring joy to her husband Joshua. Meanwhile, Joshua's mother, Madame Rose, expressed her concern about Annabel not yet giving birth to a son. She believed that having a son was important for their family's legacy. However, Joshua reassured his mother that children are a gift from God and they should be grateful for whatever blessings they receive. When Annabelle discovered that she was expecting another girl, she felt disappointed and worried about Joshua's reaction. She hoped that he would console her, but instead, he reacted with anger and disappointment. Annabelle couldn't understand why Joshua was so upset and worried when he didn't return home at his usual time. She prayed for his safety and hoped that he would come back soon. As the night wore on and Joshua still hadn't returned, Annabelle grew increasingly worried. She reached out to his family members to see if he was with them, but no one had seen him. Alone and anxious, Annabelle turned to prayer, seeking comfort and protection for her husband. As the days went by, Annabelle grew anxious about Joshua's whereabouts. She couldn't shake off the feeling of worry that gnawed at her inside. She tried calling his phone repeatedly, but it went unanswered. Tears welled up in her eyes as she feared the worst. Meanwhile, Joshua found himself wandering the streets aimlessly, lost in his thoughts. He couldn't bear the disappointment of another daughter, and his mind was clouded with worry about his marriage and his family's expectations. He felt suffocated by the weight of it all, and he needed time alone to process his emotions. Hours passed, and Annabelle's worry turned into panic. She paced back and forth in their living room, praying fervently for Joshua's safe return. She couldn't imagine life without him, and the thought of something bad happening to him terrified her. Finally, in the early hours of the morning, Joshua returned home. Annabelle rushed to him, relief flooding her heart as she saw him safe and sound. She bombarded him with questions, demanding to know where he had been and why he hadn't answered his calls. Joshua hung his head in shame, unable to meet Annabelle's gaze. He explained that he had needed time alone to clear his head and sort through his feelings. He apologized for causing her worry and promised to communicate better in the future. Annabelle hugged him tightly, grateful that he was home safe. She realized that their marriage was built on love and trust, and they would weather any storm. As they held each other close, they knew that no matter what challenges they faced, their love would always see them through. As the time for Annabelle to give birth approached, she faced a difficult and painful delivery. Unlike her previous experiences, this one was particularly challenging. After much struggle, the baby was born, but sadly, she was stillborn. Annabelle cried bitterly, feeling a mix of emotion, sadness for the loss of her child and agony from the painful delivery. Joshua too was deeply saddened by the loss of their third child. He took the baby to bury her, his heart heavy with grief. Following the death of their third child, Joshua's behavior changed drastically. He became distant, spending less time at home and neglecting his responsibilities as a husband and father. Annabelle noticed his change, but whenever she tried to talk to Joshua about it, he brushed her off with excuses, saying he was tired. Annabelle felt confused and heartbroken, wondering what she had done wrong to deserve such treatment from her husband. Meanwhile, their daughters, especially Sharon, noticed their father's absence and cried for him often. Annabelle did her best to comfort them, making up stories to suit their longing for their dad. Annabelle ran to her family for comfort, but they told her that we never support this union from the onset. Our hands are off. Whatever you see, take it. Annabelle went to her in-laws. The cold welcome she received from Madame Rose was heartbreaking. This was people she had sacrificed a lot for. Annabelle went back home disappointed and confused. She decided to find out where Joshua always spends his time. Joshua returns home after being away for 2 days. Annabelle tried to find out where he has been. Until you give me a male child, you have lost every right to know anything about me. Joshua fired back at her. Annabelle couldn't believe her ears. Hot tears rolled down her eyes. She never imagined that a day like this will come. How can human be so cruel? After everything I have done to make him happy and comfortable, Annabelle lamented. Joshua, being touched by her word, held her. Memories flooded his mind. He remembered their university days, and for the first time since the loss of their baby, they were intimate. But Annabelle noticed that Joshua was not as he used to be with her, so she was determined to unravel whatever the problem was. The next day, Annabelle followed Joshua without his notice. Suddenly, he diverted from his office route to another. She followed him, and Joshua entered a gate. She alighted and followed inside. She was shocked with what her eyes saw. Joshua with a lady that looked like she was pregnant. Joshua was also shocked to see her. Annabelle had to run out, entered the taxi, and the driver zoomed off. She got home and cried her eyes out. She had a lot of things on her mind. By noon, she took a shower and went to make something to eat. She was lucky that her kids were with her family for holiday. When Joshua returned home that day and acted as if nothing had happened, Annabelle couldn't ignore what she had seen. So she confronted him about his behavior. I am expecting a son, so deal with it, Joshua replied coldly. Annabelle was hurt by his response and silently walked away, feeling a mix of anger and disappointment. From that day on, Joshua stopped giving Annabelle money for their family upkeep, claiming that his son needed it more. Annabelle felt abandoned and regretted being a housewife, but she had no choice but to turn to her family for help. Despite their scolding, they supported her and helped her start a small supermarket business. Annabelle poured all her energy into making the business a success, determined to provide for her children who had lost their father's love and attention. Joshua was surprised to see that Annabelle no longer begged him for money. He assumed her family was giving her stipends, unaware of her new business venture. Despite his ignorance, Annabelle remained focused on ensuring her children had everything they needed, even without their father's support. One sunny morning, Annabelle started feeling dizzy and sick. She thought it was just stress, so she took some painkillers, but the feeling didn't go away. So she went to the hospital. After some tests, the doctor gave her shocking news. She was pregnant. Annabelle was surprised and scared because having a baby was the last thing on her mind. She remembered the last time she and Joshua were together, and she realized he must be the father of the baby. When Annabelle told Joshua about the pregnancy, he was furious. He accused her of sleeping around and refused to believe he was the father. He even said hurtful things about having another girl. Then Joshua left the house and didn't come back. Annabelle felt very sad and cried a lot. She didn't know what to do, so she went to her mom for advice. Annabelle's mother suggested she should have an abortion so she could focus on her business, but Annabelle's younger sister disagreed. She believed that every child is special and should be given a chance to live. Annabelle thought about it and decided that she would keep the baby because she believed in giving every child a chance. As Annabelle's pregnancy progressed, she faced many challenges. She struggled to run her business and take care of herself, but she was determined to give her unborn baby the best life possible. Despite the difficulties, Annabelle found strength in knowing that she was not alone. Her family and friends supported her in every step of the way, helping her with both practical tasks and emotional support. As the months went by, Annabelle's love for her unborn child grew stronger. She spent hours talking to her baby, singing lullabies, and imagining what life would be like when the baby arrived. Despite Joshua's absence, Annabelle knew that she had a loving family who would welcome the new addition with open arms. Finally, the day arrived for Annabelle to give birth. She was nervous but excited to meet her baby. With her family by her side, Annabelle went into labor, and after a few hours of intense pain, she welcomed a beautiful baby boy into the world. Tears of joy streamed down her face as she held her son for the first time, feeling an overwhelming sense of love and gratitude. Annabelle was a strong woman who always believed in the power of hope. Despite the challenges she faced, she never lost faith that things would get better. After Joshua left her, she focused all her energy on taking care of her children and running her business. Even though Joshua didn't show up when their son was born, she named him God's time, believing that everything happens according to God's plan. Joshua's family, however, seemed to forget all the love and support she had given them, as they now turned their attention to Joshua's new mistress, hoping she would give them a son. But Annabelle remained steadfast in her hope that one day Joshua would return to his children. As God's time grew older, Annabelle made sure to instill in him the same values of hope and resilience that she held dear. She taught him to always believe in himself and to never give up, no matter how tough things may seem. Despite the absence of his father, God's time grew up to be a kind and determined young boy, just like his mother. Meanwhile, Joshua's attention was solely focused on his new mistress, showering her with gifts and affection. He heard about Annabelle giving birth to a son, but felt too ashamed to visit. Consumed by his own selfish desires, his family too seemed to have forgotten about Annabelle and her children, eagerly awaiting the birth of a son from Joshua's new relationship. However, despite the neglect and abandonment, Annabelle remained hopeful. She continued to pray and believed that one day Joshua would come back to his children and acknowledge his responsibilities as a father. For Annabelle, love and hope were the guiding forces in her life, and she held onto them tightly, knowing that they would eventually lead her to a brighter days ahead. And so, as God's time and Annabelle continued to face life challenges with unwavering hope, the future remained uncertain but filled with endless possibility. Annabelle's faith in God's timing and her belief in the power of love kept her going, inspiring those around her to hold on to hope even in the darkest of times. Joshua's mistress had been lying to him all along. She knew she was carrying a girl but pretended to be pregnant with a boy to keep receiving money from Joshua. When she gave birth to a girl, Joshua was heartbroken and angry. He felt betrayed and used, realizing that she had been manipulating him for his money. Despite his anger, Joshua's mother, being a kind woman, helped clear the bills at the clinic and took them home. Joshua confronted his mistress, accusing her of deceiving him, but she tried to shift the blame onto Annabelle, Joshua's wife. Feeling overwhelmed with emotions, Joshua left the house to drink and forget his pain. Joshua's heartbreak was evident as he struggled to come to terms with the betrayal he had experienced. He had trusted his mistress and believed her lies, only to be deceived in the end. His mother, disappointed by the situation, still showed kindness by helping them with the bills and offering them a place to stay. However, Joshua's anger towards his mistress was high as he realized the extent of her deceit. Meanwhile, Annabelle remained unaware of the turmoil happening in Joshua's life. She focused on raising her children and running her business, still holding on to hope that Joshua would eventually come back to his family. Little did she know the truth behind Joshua's recent troubles and the betrayal he had faced from his mistress. As Joshua grappled with his emotions, he couldn't shake off the feeling of betrayal and hurt. His trust had been shattered, and he struggled to find solace in the midst of his pain. Despite his mother's support, Joshua felt alone and lost, unsure of what to do next. As he tried to drown his sorrows into alcohol, the weight of his heartbreak lingered, casting a shadow over his once happy life. Annabelle continued to focus on her children and her business. She was unaware of the turmoil unfolding in Joshua's life, but remained steadfast in her determination to provide for her family and create a better life for her children. Despite the challenges she faced as a single mother, Annabelle refused to let despair consume her. Instead, she channeled her energy into her work, pouring her heart and soul onto her business endeavors. She woke up early every morning to tend to her shop, serving customers with a warm smile and unwavering dedication. Annabelle's resilience was evident in the way she faced each day with courage and determination. She refused to be defined by the hardships she encountered, but instead she embraced them as opportunities for growth and strength. She knew that life would never be easy, but she was determined to persevere and overcome whatever obstacles came her way. Even in the face of adversity, Annabelle remained hopeful for the future. She held onto the belief that one day things would get better and her family would find happiness and peace once again. Her children were her motivation, and she was willing to do whatever it took to give them a better life. Despite the absence of Joshua, Annabelle never wavered in her love for him. She still held on to hope that he would one day return to his family, ready to embrace his responsibilities as a father and a husband. She prayed for his well being and hoped that he would find his way back home. In the midst of her struggles, Annabelle found solace in the support of her friends and neighbors. They rallied around her, offering words of encouragement and lending a helping hand whenever she needed it. Their kindness and compassion served as a source of strength for Annabelle, reminding her that she was not alone in her journey. As the days turned into weeks and the weeks into months, Annabelle's resilience only grew stronger. She faced each new challenge with grace and determination, refusing to let adversity dim her spirit. She knew that life was full of ups and downs, but she remained steadfast in her belief that better days were ahead. And so, as Annabelle continued to navigate the twists and turns of her life as a single mother, she did so with unwavering resilience and unwavering faith in the power of love and hope. Despite the hardship she faced, she remained a beacon of strength and courage for her children, showing them that no matter what challenges they encountered, they could always find the strength to overcome them. The sun was setting over the village as Joshua made his way back home. He had spent the entire day reflecting on his actions and the pain he had caused his family. As he approached his house, he felt a mixture of fear and hope swelling in his heart. He knew that facing Annabelle would not be easy, but he was determined to make things right. As Joshua reached the front door, he took a deep breath and knocked softly. He waited anxiously, his heart pounding in his chest. After a few moments, the door creaked open, and there stood Annabelle, her eyes filled with a mixture of surprise and apprehension. Joshua. Annabelle's voice trembled as she spoke his name. Joshua took a step forward, his eyes filled with regret. Annabelle, I'm sorry, he began, his voice choked with emotion. I know I've made mistakes, but I want to make things right. I want to beg for your forgiveness and for another chance to be the husband and father I should have been. Annabelle's heart wavered as she looked into Joshua's eyes. She saw the sincerity in his gaze and felt a flicker of hope ignite within her. Despite the pain he had caused, she couldn't deny the love she still held for him deep within her heart. Joshua, Annabelle's voice was soft, her eyes glistening with tears. I have spent countless nights praying for your return. I have hoped and wished for this moment, but I never dared to believe it would actually come. Joshua reached out and took Annabelle's hand in his own, his touch gentle and tender. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, he whispered, his voice trembling with emotion. But I promise to spend every day for the rest of my life making it up to you and our children. I will be the husband and father you deserve, and I will never again take your love for granted. Annabelle felt tears streaming down her cheeks as she listened to Joshua's words. She knew that forgiving him would not erase the pain of the past, but she also knew that holding on to anger and resentment would only weigh her down. And so, with a heart full of love and forgiveness, she took a step forward and wrapped her arms around Joshua, holding him close. Welcome home, Joshua, she whispered, her voice filled with warmth and love. Let us start anew, with love and forgiveness guiding our way. And as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow over the village, Joshua and Annabel stood together, united once again in love and forgiveness, ready to face whatever challenges the future may hold, hand in hand. And so they lived happily ever after. The most important lesson in this story is about forgiveness and second chances. It teaches us that everyone makes mistakes, but it's important to take responsibility for our actions and seek forgiveness from those we've hurt. It also shows that forgiveness has the power to heal relationships and bring people back together, allowing them to start anew with love and understanding. Just like Annabelle forgave Joshua and welcomed him back home, we should learn to forgive others and give them a chance to make amends. And with that, my dear friends, our story comes to a close. But remember, the magic of storytelling lives on, waiting to whisk us away on new adventures where the wonders of imagination know no bounds. Goodbye for now, and may your dreams be filled with joy, wonder, and endless possibility. Thank you so much for watching. Please kindly comment, share, like, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more interesting stories.